Thank you for having me. So I'm Olivier. I work for Symphony. I'm VP engineering for all the platforms. Disclaimer, I will speak about another cloud provider, but it's cloud agnostic, I would say. It happens. We're a dual provider. Remember. Okay, and I'll come to that. I will come to that. It's this presentation is a bit of reflection of where we're coming in terms of on-prem, then in cloud, and what the technology offered, and what it opens up in terms of possibilities. It's notably, I would say, it's the big hype today, it's AI, but there are multiple questions about AI when you process the data, and what this kind of technology, confidential computing, offers in terms of privacy, data confidentiality. As Olivier said, we are Symphony. We have four main businesses: the messaging and workflows, the voice, trade the voice, directory. We have more than 500,000 users in our directory. It's directly targeting the financial services. So it's where you can find a counterpart, and analytics in terms of reporting data that you can consume or that you can export. So more than 1,000 institutions work with Symphony. And our main positioning is about the compliance we offer in this industry, which is highly regulated. You all know that, so it's why Symphony is there. And we are an active member of FINOS. Our CIO is a board member. We know very well Olivier from past experience and from FINOS. And it's important, it's always been important for us. We are also big believers in the engineering in open source. We've been in open source, working for open source projects for more than 2 decades, at least me. We believe that's the root of what we could have today in terms of platforms. All the cloud is based on open source. So there's no reason that it's different in the financial industry. Something. Beginning. Provide collaboration that would independent layer the map. And from day one, it was like an open source side. And little by little, it over the boundary. So after 2 years, Symphony creation for Symphony stuff and after 2 years, that name. Not only you're a believer and a member, you're the foundation, the genesis. Always. Thank you, Olivier. So, where are we coming from? In order to offer the best level of security, privacy, historically, Symphony has deployed and still deploying components on-prem. So targeting the key management system hosted, the famous HSM, hardware security modules, hosted by our customers. Welcome. And some other components like data loss prevention, everything you want to filter out content, avoid data leaks. Compliance archiving, how do you, at the end of the day, how do you transfer all the data collected on Symphony to a compliant archiver? Not welcome. Welcome? No, yet? No. Welcome, Eric. We also host what we call bots, which are used to automate workflow. So they consume APIs provided by the Symphony platform, and they also interconnect with other systems. And all this has to be hosted for privacy on-prem, or it had, and this will be the subject of this discussion, on-prem. And the important part was management of the keys with FIPS 140, and that created many problems because there are so many. The upgrade of an HSM in itself is a project. So we have to, we are not anymore in a SaaS business. We are in a software deployment business where we have to deliver and support the changes on-prem. And that's the biggest problem. And it's costly for us. It's costly, even more costly for the company, for the provider. But this is the solution that was available to ensure the maximum level of security. And that was fully accepted. Now you can question, you say, okay, I have everything on components on-prem, and this is not in line with the direction taken by the industry, which is to push everything to the cloud. And at the same time, you are a cloud provider. So I'm going to pause on about all the on-prem component and about the high-level view of confidential computing. So it's not new. It is at the fact that it's been industrialized. At the level of the infrastructure, the AMD, Intel, and other, I would say, hardware makers have invested in the past. Welcome. I've invested in the past in such technologies which are about to provide a secure enclave to execute securely without any data leak a workload. If you look at these three, it's been HTTP and HTTPS. So we added the capability to authenticate and authorize a connection and the data to be encrypted when in transit. Then you have the same at rest when you store on the disk. Now we're discussing having this in memory, in use, in the processor. So that started maybe 5 years ago, and they connected to into the confidential compute consortium. So again, you see that the industry body, which is also now part of the Linux Foundation via the Cloud Native Foundation and so on and so forth. Now you see appearing, of course, confidential GPUs, because now we're discussing, and that will be the end of this discussion. We're seeing the need for AI workloads. Why would AI workload be different? You want to have full encryption, you want to have full security, full privacy, you need the same. We see the emergence of attestation services. Why attestation is relevant? You want to be sure that the workload is legit, and you want to be sure that this workload runs on a hardware or a solution which is legit. I mean, you don't want to deploy something which is unknown or tampered and run on a hardware you don't trust. That's as simple as that. And then you build on top of that cloud services which are going to use trusted execution environments, which is the generic term for confidential computing on the hardware. You need VMs, you need now you need Kubernetes, you need Lambdas, you need everything. And all the cloud providers have adopted the same and have participated to CCC, the Confidential Compute Consortium. Welcome. And then, because the adoption of the industry and the agreement of the industry is not anymore to go to the infrastructure, it's to go to the platform level. So you need to go to the application level. So you see, I'm talking about confidential space, I'm sorry, it's more a Google term, but what does it mean? It's about being able to link the cloud services which are relying on the confidential infrastructure and provide services like authorization, authentication, where you make sure that you deploy simply with an API your workload. So coming back to my initial problem, the on-prem deployments. Well, you can say, okay, let's take into account what's been developed in terms of confidential space, trusted execution environment, and say, okay, how can we push everything from the cloud, from on-prem to the cloud? And you say, the reality, what you want is, you want to deploy the workloads, the on-prem components, on confidential compute, okay? So we're using in this precise case a Google confidential space. We could have used the equivalent of AWS. It's a question of previous choices. And now what we can say is that what is important, it's not anymore the fact that you run the workload on an infrastructure which is owned by the container. It's about owning the resources. So in our precise case, it's the keys, the encryption keys. So you see that there's a clear separation between the customer will keep owning the keys and we will operate the infrastructure in the cloud and run the workload, but it will be in a secure enclave. And that's the biggest difference. And then you see other benefits coming. I'm coming back to the infamous or famous HSMs, which are so difficult to upgrade. And there are multiple transformations happening at the same time. So you're looking for agility. I have one transformation which is coming is the FIPS 140 level 3, which is not going to be supported by the end of next year because there will be the need for post-quantum support. And then if you're on-prem, what's happening? You have tens, hundreds of customers to manage because they are in transformation. And now we're saying we're pushing that to the cloud. We're managing the keys, but they own the keys. And we are driving the transformation, the NIST transformation. So we deliver the immutable images that are signed, and they will be authorized to run, and they will be authenticated. So we're relying on standard technology like OIDC, which comes on top of OAuth, so that the customer knows that we are deploying a workload, for example, the key manager or the data loss prevention module, which has not been tampered, which can be audited, and that will be deployed on a secure environment. So we operate the platform, the customers, they own the data, the sensitive data, and we don't have access to the data. I mean, we can't decrypt the data in use, at rest, or in flight. So we're equivalent in terms of security controls to what was done on-prem. No, nobody can. Because everyone, in the end, everything relies on the fact that if the customer owns the key and doesn't share the key, nobody can decrypt the data. The reality is that nobody can impersonate or prove that he has a certain identity. So you can't steal the identity. You can't say, I am in fact running your workload on behalf of Symphony. No. Symphony, the data of the customer, and the trusted execution environment. Yeah. We'll tell them you can have access to the data. Unfortunately, those data are encrypted. We don't own the keys. You have to contact SocGen, BNP, whoever you want, who owns the key, and ask for the decryption of the key. We can't. We don't have the keys. We don't. As simple as that. So everyone can come and say, okay, Patriot Act, whatever. In fact, it's a very simple way to guarantee data sovereignty. That's very simple because you cannot request the data. In the end, what are you going to do with that? Yeah.
What's the confidential?
No. I'm coming to that. It's not only HSM, it's everything we have deployed for the customers and we need to bring back. I spoke about the DLP, data loss prevention modules. I spoke about, and I'm coming to that, workload. We have Eric, so in the room, so he knows very well that we're deploying what we call bots. It's automation on the platform, usually run on-prem. Why? Because they connect to internal systems. Now we have the possibility with that to push that. That's the second way. We started with HSM. That's a pain in the neck, the one that coming. Then we see everything's coming, everything. We have things like compliance, archiving. For example, every night we need to send the full list of messages to our customer or to an archiving system. Okay. Where do you decrypt the data for the archiving system? On-prem. So it means that the customer has to create an infrastructure for that we have to support them because sometimes there are problems, we have bugs, they have issues with their deployment. Everything makes that difficult. So HSM is one thing. So HSM, the keys, what they own. This is the control the customer has. So that was the first discussion is how, and I can't discuss the two customers, but we have two flagship customers who have adopted that this year. And that's because that's only this year. But I mean, as soon as you're okay with that, you agree with that, the rest comes easily. Do I answer your question? Thank you. Okay. What we're killing is a complex hybrid model. That's we're simplifying the operational burden. We're taking back all the platform control. We are a SaaS provider, so we need to operate everything on behalf of the customer and deliver a service. But as I said, the control, the key data are under the control of the customer, and we don't have access to it. So I'm jumping now to the next part of the conversation, which is about AI and on sensitive data and the various options and the current state of the technology. So if we look at what we want to do is naturally we're going to be pushed to discuss running AI on confidential compute. Why should I run all of a sudden, decrypt the data because AI needs the data in clear and run that without any control just because it's AI. But there's no difference. So we need to ensure the data confidentiality. And it's not only while we are running, it's also is the LLM not tampered? The model is not tampered? Are we passing the correct data? Are we avoiding corruption, poisoning, so prompt injection, whatever? Everything which was valid in the past is now valid again with the AI. So that's the same. So we need to have the full control from the submission to the execution and the output. After, obviously, we want to leverage Symphony's assets in terms of cryptographic isolation, in terms of compliance. We offer auditing, we offer various aspects, archiving, everything which is required for compliance. We need that. We see the trend which is coming from, I would say day zero was Gen AI. I submit to something, it gives me an answer. But what's coming is that Symphony is used for human-to-human interactions with workflows. So we speak about messaging, but I think the term is not appropriate. Our customers, they use that in workflows so that there are transformations and it passes the information in a different structure to another team and so on and so forth. So we see that was used for human-to-human interactions. Then you're going to have, I'd say, in a very short-term horizon, agents, which are called AI agents, and they will speak. There will be human to agent interactions, and there will be a control over the human. And then there will be agent to agent, which is the Graal, I would say, which is hyped today, but maybe it's not this year, maybe it's not in 2 years, but it's coming in, I would say, in the 5 years. So at the pace of the transformation, it's tomorrow. And we need to have this compliance. We need to have a look in what's being is going to be produced and processed, because the regulation won't change because it's AI. And the last thing is the interoperability. We don't pretend to be a closed system. We are integrated upstream, downstream. So we need to have the capability at the same time to adopt various models and LLMs or whatever will be the technology, and rely on, I would say, when I wrote the slide, it wasn't open source. Now it's open source. That being the creation of the AI body in the Linux Foundation. So we see that all the MCP AI to AI agent to agent integrations are coming to a point where there's a need for integration, and open source is the place to interact, to define open standards instead of creating closed standards. So it's been the case for everything Kubernetes. It's been the case for OAuth, Open OIDC, everything. So that there's no reason it doesn't become the new reality. So we're believing we need to be that in that position. So our next step, you say, I do have the confidential compute, I need the confidential AI. It's very, very similar. So we want to become the bus. And but what's more interesting here is what are we going to integrate? It's going to be our own infrastructure. We pretend to run that in the future on confidential compute. That's coming. We see the first confidential GPUs coming. So we do have NVIDIA providing that. I know Google is going to provide the TPUs, and I'm sure AWS will have the same. It's not about Azure and whoever you want, Alibaba. Then you have the discussion is that I'm going to connect to the clusters deployed by our customers. Why? We're back to the on-prem discussion. We don't trust the execution, so we run it in a trusted environment. Trusted environment is on-prem. And the last thing, which is the trend of the industry, is to consume the models via APIs. So I speak about Vertex, but the same is applicable to AWS, the same is applicable to Azure. So the reality is that there are 3 ways to run the inferencing. In our case, we don't speak about the training. We run the inferencing because we consume the AI, because we use the technology. We're just technology users. And if you look at, you run on confidential cloud, we own the infrastructure, so it's end-to-end enforced. But Symphony has to maintain an infrastructure with GPUs and things like that. And that's completely connecting to your presentation, because why did you use the Lambdas? To avoid that, to maintain infrastructure. Well, our goal is not to operate an infrastructure made of hundreds of GPUs. Our goal is to use that. So it's very good for the customer. The burden is on Symphony. On the customer premise, we're back to on-prem discussion, so everyone will suffer. Okay, and I don't think it's viable on long term because the investment for the customer is very high. And are we sharing a grid with the customer made of GPUs, TPUs, or whatever? And then I speak about the capability to consume services in a PaaS approach. And here, today, we have a data exposure. There is nothing preventing the access to the data in clear. Because you're going to submit the data, it's going to in clear. The solution provided by the cloud provider will not guarantee that it's not on a confidential compute environment. Data transit, they arrive, the workload is not encrypted. You don't know exactly what's being done with your data, and the output as well. So you see that today we are at the point where the technologies are all there. We have 3 paths to achieve that, but it's either it's the burden is on our side or on the customer side, or we need to revisit data privacy rules. And that's I would say I will pretend that in 5 years, like we saw HTTPS, or like we saw data encrypted in disk, it will probably be the case. The workload will be encrypted in use. That's the industry. All the industries, not only the financial industry, health industry, all the industries require privacy. And it's not because it's going to be AI or whatever that's going to be released. And that's my closing word. And if you have questions, don't hesitate. I will be happy to answer them. Yeah.
Last week.
Oh, yeah. So obviously, all the models have a version. So we need to fix a version because I didn't speak about that, but the changes of the models, the new versions, the versioning is very tricky in AI, and especially for the models. Because if you take software, when you make a version, you have minors, you have major releases, and you understand what's happening. You have a minor, it's API compatible, it's transparent for you, bug fix, I would say. It's it's intermediate, you understand, and you have backward compatibility. Today, you have a new version of a model, the answer can be A, and tomorrow, B, with the same prompt. So the stability... I didn't want to be rude, but you're totally right. So you see that not only putting aside the memory context you're mentioning that could affect the answer, but we see that. So the stability of the output of the models, to me, is the most critical issue the industry is having with AI today. It's as simple as that. It's why I believe that for the time being, unless it's been solved, human supervision will be required for sensitive workflows. We're already discussing finance. It's already difficult. Don't speak about health. It's a different story. Any other question? So I cannot do a brief. I can. The I will advocate two things in that direction. First of all, 1/3 of the revenues of the cloud providers is done in Europe. So I tend to believe that the US administration is very sensible to that argument, first of all. Yeah, believe me, it's 1/3 of hundreds of billions, it becomes a big number of billions. That's the first thing I think that will drive the discussion. The second thing is now we're discussing data sovereign clouds. So we see various actors emerging, multiple scenarios. In all scenarios so far, there's a cloud provider, an American cloud provider in the story. In all, every actor is partnering with Azure, Google, AWS. The second thing that prevents that to me is that there is no single EU regulation. You have a regulation in Germany, you have a regulation in France, and having a global actor, and everyone pretends to support his local entity. So you don't see the emergence of a global actor. So the cloud providers that have different approaches, Azure took the path to have contracts, blah, 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 but in the end, it's Azure without too many refinements, and they're partnering with Orange. You have Google, they're partnering with Thales. But behind the scenes, Google infrastructure. It's Google technology operated in a data center owned by Thales. The only thing that you can have today is that 6 months of survivability of if there were the big cut happening. Okay, but until we have a global giant in Europe capable to offer the same services that the other cloud providers, we do have a problem. At this stage, we do have a problem. Who offers S3? Who offers Lambdas for AWS? EC2 at the scale, so many shapes, confidential compute, integration with GPUs. So we have to be realistic at this stage. So the best we can do is where the data is located in EU, for example, encrypted on your data, even in EU. So you have control on the access to your data, and the rest, it has to become a reality. I hope I answered your question openly.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.